back, AP Psychers. In today's video, we are going to overview a concept from the 9-6 essential task regarding one of the two key psychologists described in that task. His name was Lawrence Kohlberg, and Kohlberg's work regarded what's called morality. What would an individual do in what are called moral dilemmas? For example, if you were just walking down the street and you noticed a train heading on train tracks towards 5 unknowing individuals, would you be willing to pull the lever so that the train went off the tracks and instead killed one innocent individual? Would 5 outweigh the 1? Would you be more willing to let fate decide even though more people would die? Would you have a difficult time pulling the lever yourself, knowing you were personally responsible for the death of 1, even though you were saving 5? How would you approach that really unusual and really difficult scenario? That is precisely what Kohlberg wanted to know. Kohlberg presented these moral dilemmas to his participants and categorized the responses into 3 differing levels, what we call pre-conventional, conventional, and then post-conventional. Above each of those 3 terms in red, I have approximate ages. Most individuals around the age of 9 and below exhibit what's called pre-conventional morality, meaning they exhibit this type of morality when presented with a moral dilemma. It doesn't mean that everybody at that age only exhibits pre-conventional morality. It just means it's more common. In your early teens, we're talking early adolescence too, so even 10, 11-year-olds usually exemplify what's called conventional morality. And then what's called post-conventional morality is more common in adults. You theoretically, though, could have anyone at any age exhibit any of these levels. The categorization that you see here is just what's more prominent. So a child in the pre-conventional morality level is really focused on gaining rewards and avoiding punishment. Every moral decision is all a question of how it affects the individual. Self-interest is really the key word to describe this. So, for example, if in that moral dilemma your immediate reaction is, I would go to jail for perhaps something like manslaughter if I intentionally pulled that lever. I do not want to go to jail. I don't care about anything else. I don't care about the 5, the 1. I only care about what happens to me. You are focusing on avoiding punishment. So your moral dilemma would be resolved in what's called the pre-conventional morality level, if that's what you did. Most children at a young age tend to focus on themselves. How would this scenario affect me? Would I be willing to cheat off another student's work? Well, would it benefit me? Would I get rewarded? Would I get a higher grade? If so, I would be willing to do it. That's an example of pre-conventional morality. As children age, though, they tend to exhibit more what's called conventional morality. When children exhibit conventional morality, they're focused really on 2 different things. What's the rules, and how would my friends feel about this? Meaning, children at the second level, in the conventional morality level, start to think to themselves, well, what's the law? Is it against the rules? What's the rules of the class? What's the rules at my house? What's the rules of society? I don't want to break the school rules. I don't want to accidentally use an item I'm not allowed to. I don't want to forget to return the library book. I know it's against the rules to bring it in late. I know there's a penalty. I don't want to do that. Children at this level are really stuck on law and order, making sure that they do things to uphold the expectations that they've been taught. And what's really fascinating about Kohlberg's research is that can vary quite considerably by culture. There are very different cultural norms regarding law and order, but regardless of those cultural norms, many children at these early teen years really focus on that. Or they worry about, what would my friends think? What would my friends do? Would my friends pull the lever to save the 5 and accidentally kill the 1? Would my friends take a step back? So in addition to focusing on law and order, when children are presented moral dilemmas, many children in the conventional morality level always question, well, what would my friends think? What would my friends do? I want to seem norm. I want to do what's considered the norm. Which then brings us to the final one. Individuals that exhibit post-conventional morality have their own personal ethical codes. So, for example, if you are willing to break a law because you personally feel that it is an unjust law, you're certainly not worrying about the punishment. You could easily go to jail. I'm talking about things like civil disobedience. An individual like MLK, for example. You certainly don't care about the rewards and punishment there. You're certainly not, at least in the moment, worrying about your self-interest. You're going to jail. You're certainly not upholding law and order. You're literally breaking the law. Maybe there's a little bit of how your friends and what the social norms are, but that's even still a little bit of a stretch. I think that's most clearly an example of post-conventional morality. If you believe busing laws or poll tax laws or whatever the laws are ethically unacceptable, and you're willing to break the law in order to, on a personal level, stand up against what you consider as unjust, you're exhibiting post-conventional morality. Another great example. Let's say you're part of the military and you are given a mission that has a high likelihood of killing innocent civilians. And you take a step back and think to yourself, well, I'm not really worried about if I'm going to get punished for this. I'm not necessarily going to question the legality of this, and I'm not necessarily even going to concern myself with what my peers or even my superiors would do. But on a personal level, I could not be responsible for killing an innocent civilian, even if it is by accident, even if it's collateral damage and other precautions were taken. That's another great example of looking at a moral dilemma and using what's called post-conventional morality. In closing, I want to make it very clear, these ages are approximate, meaning Kohlberg studied his participants and found that most individuals at a young age exhibited pre-conventional morality. Most individuals in their early adolescence exhibited conventional, and most individuals in their adult years tended to shift towards post-conventional morality. But you could have an 11-year-old who really has his own or her own really personally defined ethical beliefs, and they could be presented with a moral dilemma, and they don't care about getting in trouble, going to the principal's office, getting rewarded by anyone. They don't care what their friends would do. They don't care about law and order in their society or in their school or in their community. They have their own ethical codes. It's totally not inconceivable to see that. Additionally, I should mention that this entire study was critiqued by a woman by the name of Carol Gilligan. Working as a professor, she encountered that individuals in her classes dealt with moral dilemmas in a way that didn't necessarily fit the manner that Kohlberg articulated. And she wrote this really critical piece criticizing Kohlberg's methods because he did only ask white men their feelings on moral dilemmas, which is obviously a horrible example of sampling bias. So there is a ton of critiques of Kohlberg's work, stating that this doesn't necessarily reflect the views of everyone across all socioeconomic backgrounds, race backgrounds, gender backgrounds, etc. But nevertheless, Kohlberg's work has been a jumping off point for further studies into morality.